Huge decrease in prices of goods. Yes, you heard it here first. I raised my glass to deflation. All right, so if you're wondering why I don't look very kempt outside messing around with one of my inverter generators, things not starting, so I gotta take that apart. Don't feel like doing it today, and that's planning some stuff for my wife. Yeah, it turns out my wife, she only married me for two things, and two things only: to plant stuff and my veterans discount at Lowe's and Home Depot. All right, she didn't marry me for my looks, my wit, my intelligence, my bank account. She just likes my 10% off Lowe's and Home Depot, and for me to put stuff in the ground. Oh my goodness. All right, so this is my book, Relax or Retire. If you haven't got it yet, what are you doing? What are you doing? And it's now on audiobook, by the way. All right, so there she comes. Here comes that lady. You're going to hear my dog. Let's go over and this is chapter 3. All right, and this is a part 2 of chapter 3. Chapter 3 is deflation is here. Let's go over the good folks at humanprogress.org and do some comparison shopping, shall we? In 1979, that monstrosity of a microwave you see below cost $399 in $1979. In 2015, the much smaller and much more efficient 2015 model cost $50 in $2015. What? That's crazy. That's not inflation. Exactly. One can make an argument that cheap imports are bad for America. Well, I don't know about you, but I didn't have a microwave growing up. I didn't have anything like that. I didn't know how to use a microwave until I got in the Army. All right. I didn't have a microwave. We couldn't afford to spend $399 when the median household income back then. I couldn't afford $399 when the median household income was only $16,000. In fact, we didn't even have the median household income because we were still using, you know what we were using? These guys right here, everybody. Look at that brown monstrosity of a dollar bill. Look at that. That's what we were still using. I got stuff in my hands. Yeah, boy, what a nightmare today's been. A nightmare. That's why I want to do a video to escape this is my reprieve, to escape this from the nightmare of this Shay Scanlon. All the crap I got to do around here. Like, man, don't I get a break? But now the median income is over $70,000 and a microwave only costs $59 right there. Okay, that's inflation. Those cheap foreign goods have made products many couldn't afford previously affordable even for the poorest of Americans. You like to eat meat? I do. I grill 3 times a day. I got some big fat New York strip. Choice New York strip. They aren't ribeye, but man, they look good. We're going to put those suckers on the grill here in about 45 minutes. Not only does meat taste good, but it's healthy for you. Even better is if you eat as meat as much as I do, you'll have lots of leftovers. In my book, I said I had smoked some ribs that cost $4 a pound that weekend, and I got nearly 3 meals per person. All right. Apparently, I'm not the only one who likes to eat meat either. Americans eat well over 250 pounds of meat per person per year today, which is 150% more than we did in 1910, before the Federal Reserve Board, when the price of goods was so much lower. You can see right here. Here's the United States, baby. Meat consumption versus GDP per capita. Here's us. What the hell is that? Macao, something like that? I don't even know what the hell that is, but there we are. Because we kick ass. USA or bust, baby. So we eat meat. Meat's good for us. It's healthier. And it's just great. It tastes good. You like to grill? Check this out. In 1979, it cost 14 hours of labor to buy that thing. All right? Is that it? I guess that's a gas grill. In 2015, it cost 4 hours of labor to buy this thing right here. The rare times when we grilled when I was growing up would be hamburgers on our charcoal grill. I don't recall one time in my childhood grilling steaks, and we didn't have a gas grill either. Today, though, a gas grill can be found on the back of porch of almost every American household. Again, this is because of cheap goods, and I'll prove it to you in just a second. These goods are so cheaply made that my last grill, and I grill a lot, lasted for well over 10 years. We had it in Virginia, moved to Texas, moved to New Jersey, and moved to Georgia. And moved us to 4 different states with heavy use in all sorts of weather. I grill when it's freezing out, I grill when it's hot out, I grill all the time. Now tell me, has the value of the dollar actually declined when we can buy items today that we could not have afforded 20 years ago? I don't think so. You can go to humanprogress.org to check it out yourself. Your labor buys so much more, and this, I love this right here. So in 1919, the nominal price for a pound of tea was 64 cents. In 2019, the nominal price for a pound of tea is $22. All right. How many hours did it take of labor to get that pound of tea? Back then, 2 hours and 54 minutes to buy that pound of tea. Now it's 1 hour and 75 cents, almost 2 hours. Here, we'll see. Let's go to a dozen oranges there. I love oranges. So we got a dozen oranges, 53 cents to buy a dozen oranges in 1919. It took 2.5 hours of labor to buy a dozen oranges. Now it costs $10.56, but it takes less than an hour of labor to buy a dozen oranges. All right, U.S. food prices relative to hourly wages of unskilled labor. Unskilled. I'm not talking about skilled. So we had a basket of food. It cost, I can't see what that says, $11.72 right there. We had hourly wage of unskilled labor is 25 cents an hour. It cost 46 hours of labor. It took 46 hours of labor to buy that basket of goods. Now it takes 10 hours of labor. Crazy. What this shows is that in 1919, a basket of food cost $11.72. 2019, that same basket costs under $32. The negative Nellies will say, look, the proof the dollar's crashed. It costs 11 times as much today to buy the same goods as 100 years ago. But how wrong they are. In 2019, it took 10 hours of work for unskilled labor to buy that basket of food, a bit more than a day's wages. In 1919, it took 46 hours of labor, more than an entire work week. It takes 75% less labor to buy that same basket of foods that it did 100 years ago. If that's inflation, I'll take more. Apparel. I bet I'm not the only one who remembers having to change into play clothes after school let out. The reason you had 2 sets of clothes was because your family could only afford a couple of decent outfits that were presentable at school. We call them school clothes. If those outfits got dirty, grass stained, for instance, you have to wear them grass stained or not, and for the rest of the school year, and that made you look poor. Poor people don't like looking poor. So you did what you could to make your nice clothes last as long as possible because clothes back then were not as cheap as they are today. Now, some might challenge that last assumption. In fact, we show a link here. For the price of apparel has increased by 1.99% a year since 1913, but there's a lot more to the story. Since 1990, the price of apparel has only hardly moved at all, only increasing by 0.14% a year since 1990. The reason for this is that we no longer make textiles in the South. And thus we don't pay American wages for the clothes we wear. We pay sweatshop labor prices. And sadly, we know we do it. And yet we are all hypocrites indeed. So here's a massive increase, decrease, increase, and then here we are here. When we're getting all our textiles in, friggin' Honduras and Mexico and Chile, and probably not Chile, but, Taiwan and stuff. Electricity. From 1913 to 2022, the price of electricity has increased by 1.58% a year. Yeah, if you look at the graph, right, you can see the first half of the 20th century, the costs are dropping even as millions of people are being wired for electricity. You can thank coal miners for this, by the way. Side note, the disrespect shown to coal miners throughout history is disgraceful. From Joe Biden telling miners to learn to code to John Rockefeller Jr. thugs killing women and children at Ludlow, Colorado. Folks, without coal, we have no electricity. Without coal miners, we have no coal. Thus, basic logic says coal miners equals electricity. The oil embargo in the 1970s, plus the concern about running out of natural gas, drove electricity prices way up. Yes, natural gas. It wasn't the friggin' peak oil, it was natural gas. Look it up. Thankfully, the advent of hydraulic fracking, led to the rebirth of natural gas. But the demonization of coal and other fossil fuels is increasing, which is driving up the electricity costs everywhere. Right here. Consumer price index for electricity right there. Notice right here is when fracking first came on. But here's Sniffy Joe and his stupid war in Ukraine. It's hard to predict what the future cost for an hour of kilowatt hour will be. All right, we simply don't know. But you can't simply compare the cost of a kilowatt hour today to the cost of a kilowatt hour 100 years ago. For example, going back to Days on the Family Farm by Carrie Meyer. According to May's diary, May is Elmo's husband or wife and the hero of this book. She's the one who kept a diary. If Elmo filled the ice house for a $2 charge for the ice and the help of a couple other men. He waited until the temperature plunged below zero and went to Rock River to get the ice. The ice from the river was cut into blocks with specialized equipment. Even by 1930, only about half the U.S. homes had some kind of refrigeration. So while the cost of a kilowatt hour of electricity might have been much cheaper in 1913, you had very limited use for that electricity. What items did the average household that were powered by electricity? Personally, I'd rather pay more per kilowatt hour to have refrigeration in my house than pay less and have to go to Red Rock in the dead of winter to get ice. Interesting, if we look at the BLS handbook in 1936, we see that the retail price for electricity in Atlanta was 6.5 cents for the first 25 kilowatt hours consumed. The first 25, that's nothing. Then it was 5 cents for the next 35 kilowatt hours, 3 cents for the next 150 kilowatt hours consumed. In pretty much every city, the cost per kilowatt hour is about 5 cents. Obviously, 5 cents per kilowatt hour is pretty cheap, no? Today, the average is 16 cents. A tripling of the price from 1930, proving once again that the dollar has been decimated. I'm being facetious. All right. And you can see right here, the retail price of electricity from the BLS is pretty cool, man. You can see Atlanta right there. First, right, let's go right here. November 1st, 25 kilowatt hours. And dude, you probably average, that's 25 in the course of a month. We probably average 60 kilowatt hours a day in my house. All right, that's the first 25 kilowatt hours, you're paying 6.5 cents. The next 35 kilowatt hours, you're paying 5 cents. The point being is very few people were using much on kilowatt hours. They weren't using much electricity back then. They did not have massive amounts of kilowatt hours in their electric bill. The reality is, while the cost of electricity has risen 3.6% a year, the stuff we use that's powered by electricity has seen exponential increase. According to the EIA, electricity consumption in the U.S. is 13 times what it was in 1950. Not 1913, 1950. Well, the chart below isn't specific to electricity, but total energy consumption. You can see that the huge increase in usage that started around 1930s or so, right about when most Americans were getting wires. So we see right about 1930. Watch this. Right there. Petroleum. Zhoops. Coal. Right there. Zhoops. Nuclear. Oh my goodness. But right there. Look at that. Look at that. Natural gas. Zhoops. Petroleum. Isn't that crazy? That's when houses are getting wired. Electricity has increased productivity in the U.S. beyond one's ability to measure. The facts are that without electricity, we'd still be a third world country, spending time that we now use for leisure on manual labor, going to Red Rock River and getting ice, for instance. The actual backbreaking work that went into providing ice for one's home is now simply buying a refrigerator, getting a water line installed, and plugging into an AC outlet. Then you have as much ice as you could possibly want. Even in the desert, you can have ice, which is the main reason cities like Phoenix and Las Vegas are becoming so populated. Climate control. Oh, and just in case I need to remind you, the cost of that amazing refrigeration devices has dropped significantly too. Look at this. Here's our fridge. 1979, it cost 75 hours of labor. It costs $489. In 2015, it cost $747. Much more efficient, much cleaner, but it costs only 36 hours of labor. Yeah. Air travel. The history of air travel has been one of massive deflation, which has opened up the airline for regular families. Check this out. Part of the reason flying was so exclusive and relatively luxurious in the 40s, 50s, and 60s was that very expensive until the airline deregulation after 1978. Whoa, 1978? Who was president back then? Reagan? Airlines were considered a public utility, and airfares were set by the federal government, which ensured the airlines made money. Even after deregulation, a basic domestic round-trip airfare in 1979 averaged $615 in today's money. That airfare dropped to $344 by 2016. Isn't that crazy? Check this out. Here's these guys traveling from Boston to LA. Cost $4,539 to do that. Look, he's got a suit on. You know, she's all fancy schmancy. You know, they're not looking, loving life. Here, and they're white. Here's a black family in shorts. You know, short shorts, punk style hair. Cost $480. That's deflation, man. Below sales ad from a Boston newspaper in 1978. You can tap right here. This great package includes Eastern Airlines Super Saver fare with $143, which is 40% off the regular day coach fare to go from Boston to Miami. Here's the same flight in 2023. This is after the huge energy spikes of the last 2 years. $211 to go from Boston to Miami, nonstop. And this doesn't even say it's nonstop. $143 in 1978 doesn't even say it's nonstop, and that's 40% off because you're buying all the other crap that goes with it. Here, $211. So in 1978, you pay $150 to fly from Boston to Miami with those vacation packages. Median income in 1978 was $15,000 smackaroonies. The same flight today is $211, and yet median income is $70,000. Air prices have increased by 4.1% a year since 1963, but from 2000 to 2021, look at that, gone way down. Now look at that. Long distance calls. In 1977, I was 6 years old, living in Peaks Island, Maine, when the Raiders played the Vikings in Super Bowl 11. I was a huge Raiders fan because my grandpa lived in the Bay Area and had season tickets to the Raiders back then. And he would send me Raider gear on occasion. I love this stuff, man. A trash can, a pennant, a poster that said Pride and Poise Boys with Dave Casser, Ken Stabler. Oh, it's great. I was excited about the Super Bowl, let's just say that way. But we didn't have a TV. So my dad borrowed one from a neighbor just so I could watch the game, which the Raiders won 32-14. I was so happy I begged my mom to let me call Grampy to talk about it. She allowed me to do so, but made it very clear that we couldn't talk long because of the expensive of the phone call. We probably talked for no more than 5 minutes, and yet I still remember that call today. In the chart below, you can see what it cost. It costs over $10 in today's dollars for one 10-minute call over 2,400 miles distance. When was the last time you had to worry about the expensive long-distance call? Yeah, that's inflation. Look at that. Look at this. So right here, 1970, right there, 77. I'm calling 2,400 miles to my grampy. Cost $10. This is AT&T. And that's back then. Well, it's in today's dollars, but this is in today's dollars for when this chart was put out. I can't remember off the top of my head. You have to put a link right there. But look at that, dude. In 1977, it cost $10 in 1977. Well, I think this was put on 1991. Actually, if memory serves. Either way, it costs a hell of a lot more than it does now to make a long-distance call. To call my grampy in Los Altos to talk about the game. Food. According to BLS, food prices have gone up by 3.18% a year from 1913 to 2022. You can see right here. Deflation right here during the Great Depression. In 1913, the price of a dozen eggs cost 37 cents. In 2022, it costs about $3 per dozen. The increase in the price of a dozen eggs is about 1.9% annually. But wait, the unskilled laborer today can purchase 24 times as many eggs for the same amount of work as a century ago. You hear that? That's why in my last video I said about potatoes. The price of potatoes has gone up, but the price to actually how much it costs for you to get those potatoes has gone down because you make so much more money. People just don't get this. It's crazy. Now you get 24 times as many eggs for the same labor as you could back in 1913. How did this happen? Right here. From New York Times, 1917. Mr. Maltby said the needs of the war had aroused the English farmers to discard all their old conservative methods of tilling the ground and adopt motor power and the latest types of agricultural machinery. The results have been so surprising to them that they would never go back to the old-fashioned farming of their ancestors. Anything jumping at you? Technology increased productivity, just as we stated previously before regarding potatoes. Well, the nominal prices has increased, the ability to produce has increased even more. Look at this, wheat yields right here. Look at this, wheat yields. Countries all over the world are surpassing previous records for the production of food crops. This is good news that stands in stark contrast to the apocalyptic picture that the media paints in regards to climate and weather. Look at this. China, world, India, Brazil, wheat production has gone through the roof over the last 60, 70 years. Revisiting Carrie Meyer's books, Dave's on Family Farm. Stationary or portable gasoline engines began to appear on farms around 1900. In 1908, Sears Roebuck and Company sold a Kenwood engine of 2.5 horsepower for $92. That's in 1908. Remember the median income back then. 7 years later, Montgomery Ward, Monkey Ward, sold a 2-horsepower model for $48. Before long, refrigeration allowed the storage of milk, and urban demand for milk and ice cream grew. Milking machines became practical around 1910, and mechanical refrigeration also became an option for farmers who chose to invest and specialize. More and more brand names appear in May's record of grocery expenses with each passing year. More and more brand names appear in May's record of grocery expenses with each passing year, as do the purchase of fruits, vegetables, fish, and meat. February grocery records occasionally include lettuce and radishes from farther south. Fruits and veggies certainly weren't being grown in Illinois during the wintertime, so where'd they come from? Farther south, said Carey. We're able to move product from point A to point B much easier now because what best benefited consumers in the 1920s was the improved roads, which combined with ever-improving automobiles and trucks made a difference in the time farmers spent hauling crops and running errands. Why? Because federal aid to states for road construction more than tripled the Federal Highway Act, more than tripled with the Federal Highway Act of 1921. It provided matching grants to build an inner systems of highways and improve farm-to-market roads. And we know from the BTS, the Bureau of Transportation Statistics, that trucks are the most heavily utilized mode of moving goods in the United States and from Canada and Mexico. Trucks move $721 billion, where rails only 174 of goods in 2017. Beginning in the 1920s, refrigeration and over-the-road trucking changed everything. Americans were not at the mercy of the railroads anymore. It's literally insane that in one generation, Americans went from using very little electricity and owning horse-drawn carriages to air travel and living in climate-controlled homes. Inherently, with that kind of change, labor productivity increased dramatically. Incomes have risen, as such we've been able to buy more goods, even while the nominal prices for those goods have increased. Now, one of the reasons the price of the goods has gone up is because the cost to package the goods. Right here from my man Elliot Merrick's Green Mountain Farm. All in all, our cellar is one of our prime assets of independence. And I can never understand how so many families have given up this important factor in living. As soon as you give up your cellar, you have lost your storage space and made yourself a victim to the small package racket. Often 60 cents of every dollar you spend for food will be going for colored ink, cellophane, promotion, and freight, none of which you can eat. Anyway, I'll stop there. I just, dude, if all you see is negativity, I don't know what's wrong, man. I mean, maybe it's because I was just born poor. I don't know. I'm getting ready to put some freaking massive New York strip. New York strip isn't the best cut. Pretty good. On a gas grill. I mean, I didn't have any of that growing up. We're gonna watch the basketball game tonight on a big fat color TV. Was it 4D? I don't know what they call it. HD, something like that. We got air conditioning. I didn't have air conditioning. I mean, maybe you did. I don't know. But my goodness, the whole point about this is we had a significant change in the way this country was built in the beginning of 1900s to about the post-war, at the end of the World War II. It changed everything. Maybe for the better, maybe for the worse. I'll leave that to you. For me, it's for the better, without question. The idea I can go in the middle of wintertime in Maine, and I talk about my book, and get some freaking, oranges. Are you kidding me? Anyway, so the book's again is on sale right now. You can buy it on Amazon. I think it's, I can't remember how much it costs. $9, something like that. Love your thoughts. We'll see you.